Well, what's the crack? Hope we're all good. Welcome to another video. And today's video is going to be a wee bit different than the usual style of videos that I've been going for. It's going to be a lot more of a sit down and a lot more educational and yeah, educational. I had a word there, but I completely forgot about it. It's going to be a lot more educational video, where it's me sitting down talking to the camera, and it's also like a behind the scenes sort of look at what we get up to inside the GA Performance Academy, which is the online coaching program that I run for GA players, looking to improve their, I suppose, confidence and then ultimately performance on the pitch. So basically, inside the program, every month we do like a webinar where I'll bring up a certain topic, dive into it in more detail, to essentially build my clients' knowledge and understanding of why we do what we do inside the program, so that whenever they've left the program, they have the skills and the tools there to carry that through the rest of their career, and hopefully never need another coach again, unless they want one, obviously. So yeah, hope you enjoy it. It's almost going to be like a podcasty style sort of video. So if you want to play it in the background, or you just want to look at my face, feel free. But if you want to just put the earphones in, play it in the background, it's almost like a Q&A from what my clients had asked me in the build up to that week, what sort of things they were struggling with, and then me giving my sort of input on them. So hopefully you'll find plenty of value in it. If you do, always appreciate if you can like the video. Don't know if you do reviews in this, but if you can like the video, subscribe, all that sort of crack, and share it with one teammate who you think it would help. And I suppose if you have any questions coming off the back of it, either any questions as a result of the questions or any questions that I maybe didn't answer, feel free to drop them below. More than happy to help. And I'll maybe do a Q&A. I'll maybe get questions in from the people that watch these videos, and then do another Q&A on this channel as well. And finally, ignore the quality. It was recorded on Zoom, so ignore the quality of the camera. But yeah, the content of the video is good. So enjoy. Cheers for watching. Basically, today we're going to run through a good Q&A. There's questions that I put in over the last couple of days, over the last week. So there's been some really good questions. Some things like diving into a lot more detail than what we normally chat about, and a few things that we wouldn't be covering or thinking about an awful lot. So that was good to get an idea of where people are at, what maybe people are struggling with, and what areas you want me to dive into a wee bit more. So we're going to run through that. Brandon just jumped in. Good to see you. I was just saying there before we hit record, if there's any questions that come as a result of the questions, just pop them in the group or pop them in the chat here, and I will cover them at the end, mate. All right. But getting stuck in. So question number one, I think this was from Emer. So what's the checklist, or what's in the checklist for when we're at the pitch looking back in our videos for speed or acceleration, so that you can look at the technique between reps and know what you have to implement or what you have to kind of change going from rep to rep, which is a very good question. So when it comes to speed work, like there's a couple of key things that I'm looking at. I'm looking at your switching, so like how the legs are moving. I'm looking at your reactivity off the ground, and then I'm looking at what, like, your projection or your orientation, so your body angle and what direction you're traveling. All right. Basically, we want to get those three areas working together and working in the same direction. So how the legs are moving in initial acceleration, are we punching that knee forward and back? So we're driving that knee forward to then be able to retract it back into the ground nice and aggressively to get us moving forward. Because if we want to get moving forward, we need to apply force down and back behind us. And then as we start to rise out of the run, so that's our projection in those first few steps, in our orientation has to be very forward, so that we can punch the knee back and forward to allow us to get moving forward. And then when we're doing that as well, if we've got the toes up, we've got that stiff ankle, we're going to be reactive off the ground, and we're going to make the most out of each step then. So then as we go through the run, we start to raise, we start to get taller, so our orientation starts to get more upright. And then with the switching of the legs, we get into more of a cyclical type movement. So we're still punching that knee in front of the body nice and quickly, but we're minimizing how much time the leg spends behind the body compared to in front of the body. So we're less backside and more front side. So we're punching that knee in front nice and quickly, and then we're again snapping out of those shapes nice and quickly, with a stiff ankle. And then as well as that, we start looking at sort of system stiffness. So we look at our hip, knee, and ankle all being stacked above each other. So our hips are high off the ground with minimal knee bend. And there's minimal sort of sinking with each step. So that's what we're looking at there. We're looking at, with the switching as well, are we getting that foot back into the ground quickly, or is the leg continuing to swing out? All right, so that's everything we're kind of looking at. So we start off low, we get more upright, we start with more forward and back steps, punch the knee forward, punch the knee back, and then it becomes more cyclical as we get upright. And then we're keeping that stiffness throughout the whole movement as well. So that's kind of what I'm looking at is the main thing. Hopefully that makes sense. Hopefully that covers your question. All right. So switching, reactivity, projection, that's our orientation. That's what we're looking at.
Question two then. I think this was from you, Dar. So differences between club and county players and bridging the gap. What changed in your own behaviours the first time you were in versus now? So this was a good one. So to me, like the biggest difference is the time and energy that you put in. Like players, plenty of club players do put lots of time and energy in, but I think just the overall demand of county, because you have to probably travel somewhere, you have to go away. I think it just does take up a bit more time. Then you start looking at maybe away days. You start looking at video sessions, S&C sessions. Like it's all stuff that club players are still doing, but I think it's just done. There's maybe more expected from you whenever you are in a county setup, and there is a wee bit more of a time demand on it. And then as a result, it probably takes more energy from you as well. When it comes to actually games and training, then I think it's a speed and the speed of execution, the quality of execution done on a consistent basis at a certain level. Maybe in sometimes in club games, from my own experience anyway, you can get away with not being firing on all cylinders all the time. Whereas at a county level, you probably get exposed a wee bit more if you're not at 100% or as close to 100% as possible a lot of the time. I think the speed and intensity of the game is probably a big difference, and then that probably impacts like the time of the ball, your decision making. Like that all has to be a wee bit sharper. How you're using the ball, where you are tactically. I suppose the physical demands go up a level to match that intensity. Then, so that would be the big thing. In terms of my own behaviours then, so when I first went in, I was young, I was 19. I was sort of just happy to be there, to be honest. Wasn't mature enough. Probably had it relatively easy up to that point, to be completely honest. At club, one of the key players underage, one of the key players even coming in the senior team, didn't, kind of get into the senior team pretty handy. Started playing there when it was first, like basically my last year of minor. I was starting in the club senior team for like come championship, so it just kind of went like a smooth transition for me. But then whenever I made the step up from club to county, it was a massive step up for me at that stage. Even though I played county underage, like the difference between county underage and senior was massive for me. So yeah, probably wasn't mature enough. My own lifestyle, my own habits. Like I was trying to do a million different things at once. So it was probably the biggest thing was probably the social life, trying to go out drinking every weekend, trying to live like a student, and my mates were all students at the time. I was working at the time, coaching in the gym, which was probably part of it as well, where you were maybe coming home late from sessions. Nah, well, probably 10, half 10, 11 o'clock. By the time you were getting into bed, you were probably wired from the training session, weren't getting to sleep too well, probably still having coffees at 5, 6 o'clock at night before going to training. Waking up at 5 in the morning to get up ready to coach for 6 o'clock in the morning, and then going to the weekend, probably drinking once a week, and then having a knock-on effect to your recovery, energy being shit, performances being shit, and then making shit decisions nutrition wise as well. So yeah, probably just burning the candle at both ends. Like that didn't help. Body wasn't up to the standard. Like I probably didn't realize the level that was needed to be at for county level. So it took me a while to kind of adjust to that. And then, as I said, with the drinking, with eating too much, eating shit foods at times, body composition started to show that, gained a couple of kilo, and yeah, was well off the pace then. So versus now, it's literally like complete opposite of that. Took a couple of 2 years out overall. Matured a good bit in that time, got clear on what it was actually wanted to chase. And that's where I learned that lesson of working my way back into the panel of like you behave your way to being the person that you want to be. So me looking on the outside, wanting to get back into the county team, I had to behave like a player who was already in the county team. So my training, my lifestyle, my standards, all that sort of crack had to match up before I wanted to get to. So that was a massive lesson for me. So yeah, literally complete opposite. So lifestyle's all dialed in, body composition, the training that you do, like you pretty much yeah, everything's sort of optimized for performing at the highest level. Like, so that's a big thing for me. Question three then. So how often should you be hitting recovery each week or every 2 weeks, between foam rolling, stretching, yoga, and all that sort of thing? So good question. And it's probably one of the most common ones in terms of recovery. There's a good few bits on recovery, but I said it before, like the big thing with recovery is looking at the big rocks first. So you're looking at your training, you're looking at your nutrition, you're looking at your sleep. All right. We want to get those nailed first. And then with the rest, it's like sprinkling little and often works best, in my opinion. So from a training standpoint, are we actually managing our training load effectively throughout the week? Do we have a good training plan in place first? Are we managing our load, managing our downtime so that we can adapt from sessions and recover from sessions? Nutrition wise, are we eating enough throughout the week? Are we eating enough to fuel the body, eating enough to recover? Are we getting enough protein in, good amount of carbs in, healthy fats, and overall just are we getting a good amount of calories in? And then sleep, are we, getting to bed at a good time? Are we waking up and going to sleep at the same times? Because when we're sleeping, that's when we're I did record it. I thought I wasn't recording this. Shit, I'm there. Happy days. But yeah, are we going to sleep? Are we getting a good amount of sleep? Because when we're actually sleeping, that's when we're recovering the best. So yeah, with the rest, it's kind of like sprinkling in wee bits and pieces. So the idea of like a big recovery day or a big recovery session, to me, it's time consuming. It can be pretty boring. Like if you're going to do a full stretching session or foam rolling session, like I can think of nothing worse than going and doing that. And it's not really needed, to be honest. But so I just like to sprinkle wee bits and pieces of it in throughout the week, in terms of little and often. So the likes of your mobility, the likes of maybe like foam rolling or massage stuff. I don't foam roll. I haven't foam rolled in years. I get the odd massage here and there. Like when I'm playing, I try to get a massage every week or every 2 weeks. But in terms of like mobility, in terms of like movement stuff, bits of rehab here and there, ice baths, like sauna, all that sort of stuff. It's just little and often. It's not like dedicating full days towards that. Like mobility, I'll do a wee bit every day. I'll do like mixing into my warm-ups. If you want to do foam rolling, again, same sort of thing, just working into your warm-ups. Yoga and stuff, do it on your off days if you get the chance. 15, 20 minutes, half an hour max. Anything over half an hour, I'll clock out when it comes to yoga or stretching or anything like that. Like, so that would be my approach, little and often. Question 4 then. So in the 7-day week with 5 training days, when's it best if you want to start implementing ice baths? So again, good question. Similar to above, we want to nail the big rocks first. So ice baths, we're obviously using them for recovery. They try and speed up the recovery process. So first things first, like look at the big rocks first, nail them, training, nutrition, and sleep. And then when we start to look at ice baths, it's like, right, what's the goal of the session? Do we want to adapt from the session, or do we want to recover as quickly as possible before the next session? And that will give us the idea of, or that will give us the answer in terms of when we want to use the ice bath then. All right. If we have a busy schedule where we've lots of games coming up, say we maybe have a game in an Antrim, you might have a game on a Wednesday, you might have a game on a Sunday then, or you might have a game on a Friday, you might have a game on a Sunday. All right. If you have a short turnaround time and you need to get ready for the next game, then that's probably when you want to use the ice baths and want to get in them. All right. Or say your training sessions, you have a game on a Sunday, but Tuesday and Friday's training sessions were heavy enough training sessions, or Tuesday, Thursday is pretty heavy, and you're feeling a bit fatigued, just ran a wee bit more. Maybe that you're continuing to build while you're going throughout the league, you're really targeting the championship. So maybe some training weeks are pretty heavy. We'll probably want to get our ice baths in there. All right. We don't need to be going and getting in them after every session. It's just in those weeks where maybe the training load is up, maybe with a short turnaround between games, that's when I would be jumping on them. We don't want to be jumping in them, especially in round gym work. It will impact the adaptations we get in terms of strength, in terms of size. So basically training is going to give you a bit of inflammation. We want that inflammation to be there to actually adapt and either get stronger or get bigger. If we're just jumping in an ice bath after every single session, that inflammation is going to come down and it's going to essentially blunt the adaptation that we're getting. All right. But when it comes to the likes of maybe a cold dip or a cold shower in the morning, bit of a different story. All right. So if we're jumping into something cold for 30 to 60 seconds just to feel fresh and almost like wake yourself up, like it's not going to have a massive impact then. One, the water probably isn't that cold enough at this time of the year anyway. And only if you're in it for a short time, you're just jumping in, sticking the head on there, shake your head off, and then jump out again. Like you're going to be grand. It's not going to do anything. All right. So yeah, again, big rocks, busy training schedules. So number 5 then. So what should I be eating to make sure I'm refueling properly after sessions, especially after a particularly hard match or team training session? So in this, like cover this in the carb loading guide as well. So make sure you check out that and we'll go into a good bit of detail there. But basically, if you look at a post-training session meal, if we want to break it down into 3 areas. So number 1, we've got the 3 R's, all right? So we've got the recovery process, repair, recovery. So protein to start that repair process. 2 is going to be carbs to refuel and replenish. So that starts to get us ready for the next session. And then we've got like rehydrate and replace electrolytes. All right. So get the water back on board, like the salts, electrolytes, all that sort of stuff that we've sweated out. You want to get that back on board. So we want to repair, refuel, and rehydrate. Yeah. But I suppose with any sort of meal, we want to look at good source of protein, good source of carbs, especially after a training session. All right. In terms of training sessions, it might be late, it might be after a game, it might be an evening session, it might be pretty hard to get a full meal in. So you can eat the full meal if you're happy enough and you can get that in no problem, or you can go for like a liquid option, whether it's a shake or probably a shake or yogurt or something like that. So sort of like a semi-solid. It's just essentially whatever you can get in. For me, sometimes in evenings or after a big game, protein shake and cereal is the go-to. So good bit of protein, obviously, and then cereal, good bit of carbs in there. But any meal we're looking at, good source of protein, looking at about 30 grams serving of protein. Good source of carbs, again, adjust the sizes depending on what we need for that day. Some sort of healthy fats in there. To me, to be honest, I don't really need to try to get too many fats in. Most of my food will be lean protein and carbs, and the fats will just kind of look after themselves of consistently being around sort of like 50 to maybe 80 grams. And then some sort of fruit and veg in there. Like if you're nailing that, you can't go too far wrong. All right, pretty straightforward. But check out the carb loading guide. We'll go into that in a bit more detail there. Question 6. I think this was you, Cormac. So, how to translate certain techniques that are being done in top speed sessions into game scenarios? And I sort of explained this on the pitch the other day. So, when we look at the game, so the game is the most specific task. All right. Everything we do in training is general. All right. So it's like general preparation for the game. Even though sprinting and change of direction and acceleration is probably the most specific thing we can do from a physical performance side of things, it's still general when it comes to looking at team training or looking at the game. All right, that's the most tactical standpoint, or that's the most specific standpoint. My job is to prepare you physically as much as possible, but with the goal of sprinting and technique work is to make it as natural as possible and make it like as subconscious as possible. And this is where like the 4 stages of learning come in. All right, so first stage is you're unconsciously incompetent, like you don't even know that there's a certain technique or there's maybe even like something that you should be working towards. Second stage is like, right, you're aware of it, but you're still not too sure on what it is that you should be doing. So that's consciously incompetent. And then you're consciously competent. So this is where probably most of us are. So when we actually think about something, we know what we're trying to do. When we like put our minds to it and we focus on it and we're present and doing it, we can make it happen pretty well. All right. But our goal is to get from that third stage to the fourth stage. And that fourth stage is that unconsciously competent. So that's just your mastery stage, where it's just completely second nature. You don't need to think about it, and you just do it without. It's just automatic. Yeah, it's like if you think of the best example I can give is like if you're soloing a ball. All right, we're soloing a ball. If you think of when you were a child trying to learn it, you maybe did it on the spot. You probably like kick it up and catch it with 2 hands. And then you maybe start walking with it, you might start jogging with it, and then eventually you're running at full speed. You can do it left foot, right foot, you can catch in one hand, you can drop from the other hand to the other foot. It just becomes natural, it just becomes second nature to you. All right. So that's the goal of sprinting, and it's a process of drilling and refining and being conscious of it until we just start moving that way. All right. When it comes to transferring into a game, so there are a lot more variables in the game as well. You're looking at the man, the player that you're marking. You're looking at the ball. You're looking at the tactics. Where do you need to be? We're not always going in a straight line. So there is more that comes into play, and it's not going to be like textbook. But when we're sort of moving in isolation, when we're working in isolation, we're just getting used to moving in a certain way and getting into a certain bandwidth, so that whenever we do go into the pitch and we move in a certain way, it's going to be close to that kind of ideal technique that we're looking for. Right, it's not going to be perfect. It's never going to be perfect. There is no such thing as perfect. But there is a bandwidth that we want to kind of reduce in between to make us more efficient and more effective. Yeah. One thing I'll say is we do get some opportunities just to completely open up, whether it's we're bombing forward to try and get on the end of something to support the play, or the ball's broken down. Say we've committed forward, they've turned the ball over and we have to get back as far as quick as possible. We can probably think about it a wee bit more then if we've got like a 60, 70, 80 yard run just to sort of go for it, and have to get from A to B as quick as possible. You can maybe think of it there. But the main thing is we want to make it as natural and as natural and as automatic as possible. All right, that's why we drill it so much. That's why we have such an emphasis on it, and that's why we're hitting it every single week. All right. Question 8 then. So thoughts on doubling up days in terms of gym and training or running sessions. So with this, I'm a big fan. And this can be done really well when we have enough time to recover in between. So it would actually be ideal if in an ideal world, we would have our speed work followed by our gym work, or the speed work followed by our team training session followed by lower body gym work. Like that would be an ideal day, but it's not always logistically possible. And this is where the saying we want to keep the high days high and the low days low comes in. So we're splitting our week into high, low, high, low, high, low. So we get all our high intensity work on one day. We've got a low day to recover, and then we're hitting high intensity again. But it doesn't always work that way. But if we were to double up our days, we do the most explosive stuff and the most taxing stuff first. So that would be like our speed work or anything sort of explosive. Then we have our team training session, and then we'd have lower body gym afterwards then. All right. The next day then would be lower intensity, where we go maybe like off-peak conditioning, maybe a bit of aerobic work, upper body gym, or it'd be like a complete rest day. And then we get the body recovered. And then the next day out after that would probably be back to a high day then. If we've time to work it in, if you can fit that into your schedule, brilliant. But it's not always logistically possible for everyone. All right. Question then. So halftime of games, advice for nutrition. So this is a good one as well. So basically, when it comes to nutrition, when it comes to like carb loading, like we have to understand like why we do it. All right. So when we eat carbs, like they're stored in the muscle and the liver as glycogen. All right. So basically, carbs are broken down. That's what they're stored as. And with intense exercise, those glycogen or those carb stores deplete. All right. And the more intense the exercise is, or the more intense the event is, the quicker and the faster that depletion happens. All right. So as a result, if we've topped up on all these carbs and those stores are starting to run empty, we start to get fatigued, performance starts to dips. Essentially, like your muscle contractions are not as fast or as explosive. So it's like that feeling of the legs are burning. You're trying to do a max output, but just feel like you're not moving anywhere. All right. As well as that, then our decision making starts to suffer as fatigue starts to kick in as well. All right. So with half time, it's a good chance to top those stores up. Okay. So my go-to here is something that's easy to digest and fast acting. So the likes of, that's why you'll go in, sometimes you see the likes of sweets, Lucozades are there, isotonic gels, Jaffa cakes, all that sort of stuff. Something quick and easy that you can get in, gives you a good hit of carbs, good hit of sugar, and then you can tap into that pretty quickly again. All right. But the big thing here is like if you're relying on 10-15 minutes at half time to top the stores back up and you haven't done the work beforehand, like you're fighting a losing battle. All right. The prep beforehand is going to be key. So in the week in the lead up, not letting the tank run empty before that, and then doing a good carb load the day before. And then I suppose at halftime, then you can start to look at topping up. And then also like rehydrating as well. So getting electrolytes on board, getting water on board, and something like a Lucozade too, just the you're getting carbs, probably getting salts and electrolytes in there. And you're sort of hydrating yourself too. All right. Hopefully that makes sense. So something quick and easy. It's not going to sit too much in the stomach, something you're going to be able to digest, and yeah, it gives you a good hit of carbs pretty quickly. Question 10. So what differences will there be when it comes to the off season? Only relevant for all those people. So yeah, at the minute that is, but it's kind of relevant to everyone to get to sort of paint the picture. So basically, we actually, if you check the group, if you go into the group and you look at the transition plan, it was a training we did back in September, October time, if I can remember correctly. So you want to check that out first and foremost. So we actually go through it in detail there. But basically our approach and what we kind of did, what we kind of look at is we'll review the season first and foremost, and we'll take a bit of downtime. All right. So after the season, it's important. Conor Miller actually said it. When you're climbing up the mountain for so long, like you need to take a bit of time to come back down before you can go up the next one. All right. And we can't always be pushing 100 mile an hour full steam ahead. So we want to take a bit of downtime after the season, like anywhere from sort of like 1 to 3 weeks. It can be complete downtime. It can be, doing something else. Just a bit of upper body, maybe a wee bit of off-feed stuff, and just essentially enjoying your training and keeping yourself tipping away for a couple of weeks. In that time, then we want to review the season, assess what went well, what are the areas for improvement. Then we'll probably get on a call, we'll chat through it, and then we'll build the off-season plans from there, and then we'll get to work on that. All right. Generally speaking, what we look at over the off-season, the focus shifts to more like size and strength work in the gym. So sort of like general prep, aerobic sort of conditioning, building up the overall running volume, and just building up the overall training volume over a couple of months so that we can reach new levels, reach new heights, and then come back flying in the new year. Just going to grab a drink here and then I'll explain the next wee bit. So go ahead. So basically, this is like a principle or like a method of like of programming or periodization. Essentially, it's called vertical integration. So it's just a fancy word for saying we keep an element of all the physical qualities in throughout the year, but that emphasis or the amount of each physical quality will vary depending on the year, depending on the goals, depending on what you're trying to achieve. All right. So if we break it up into two ways, you've got your in season, your off season, just really, really simply. In your in season, things are a lot more intensive. So we're probably focusing on speed, working on explosiveness. The intensity is that wee bit higher, but the overall volume's a wee bit lower. I keep on hitting the button here. But yeah, the intensity is high, but the volume's low, and we're focused on being fresh so that we can have those high outputs when it comes to going on the pitch. Yeah. So it's sharper, it's snappier. But then when it comes to the off season, it's a bit more extensive in nature. So we're probably going more volume, but slightly lower intensity. All right. In the gym, still moving pretty intensely in the gym. So you're still getting a bit of strength work in there, a bit of hypertrophy work. But in terms of like your max outputs, you're probably not too close to your max. You will build towards them, but you probably have a bit more volume in there to put on a bit of size. From a training or conditioning standpoint, we go for more aerobic stuff. We build up the volume, more time in the feet and building up the distance. We still keep an element of speed and, plyos not in there, but speed is going to be, we're still hitting high speeds, but it's not as much volume as we would be doing in season. And then from a plyo standpoint, it's more extensive. So again, there's the jumps aren't as explosive. There's going to be more contacts. They're not as forceful. They're more sort of rhythmic and building sort of like tissue tolerance, tissue capacity for more intense work down the line. That's probably the best way to describe it. Is we're laying the foundations for more intense work down the line. So that's the goals of off season then. So yeah, volume will build over time. The intensity will start relatively low, but then as we start to build the intensity, we'll start to bring down the volume. Yeah. Question 10, so that's generally speaking as well. People have sort of different goals throughout that time. Question 10 then, so timing of meals the day of a game. So again, this is something covered in the carb loading guide. When it comes to game day, like we're just focusing on keeping the stores topped up. All right, we've done all the hard work in the carb load the day before, and we haven't let the tank run empty in the week before. But when it comes to game day, so I like to do like I learned this from Chris Lowe as well, and like still stick to it myself. I like to look at like a 6 or 7 hour countdown, and that's where the law of halves comes in. All right, so basically, you start a throw in. Say your throw in's at 3 o'clock to make it nice and simple for me. 6 or 7 hours beforehand. So 6 hours before 3 is what, 9? Yeah, yeah, 9. 8 or 9 o'clock then. So we'll have our biggest meal, and then half the time we'll have a meal half the size. So 3 or 3.5 hours out, have a meal half the size, and then an hour and a half, 2 hours out, we'll have a meal half the size again, or like a small snack then. All right. When it comes to game day, like really, really simple is when I keep the carbs like relatively high, moderate to maybe low protein, or basically carbs kind of moderate to high throughout the day. Protein can be higher and get lower as we get closer towards the game. And then fats and fibers we want to keep low throughout the day. So we want to digest them nice and quickly, and it's not taking a long time there's not a lot of food sitting in the gut. All right. Basically our goal is being light and tight. All right. So we want to keep it topped up. We don't want to be eating massive amount of meals. So we're going into the game feeling sort of slow, lethargic, and just like our stomach feels kind of upset. All right. So say we start early in the day, breakfast, we can have high carb, probably high protein, low fat and fiber. The next meal then can be moderate to high carb, moderate to low protein, low fat and fiber, and then the snack before the game is just the carb based snack then. All right. But yeah, there's your timings. 6 or 7 hours out, 3.5 hours out, maybe even 4 hours out. That's what I go for. And then say an hour and a half to 2 hours out then. That would be my go-to. How do you prepare for social events and not wanting to lose progress? So question 11 then. So this is a good one. And obviously coming into summer, it's probably a good time to sort of review it as well. So coming up the summer, coming up to Christmas, there seems to be a lot more social events and the good weather coming out. Very easy to get blown into a beer garden or have a few pints after a match. It's always a nice vibe. But big thing for me is like understanding the trade-offs, both in the short term and in the long term, and making sure that we're okay with that. All right. If we're going to be going out to a social event, we're going to be drinking, going to be eating more. One, if we're drinking, the recovery isn't going to be as good as it could be. It's going to impact the recovery. Our performance over the next couple of days isn't going to be great. Probably going to be suffering for a few days. And then if we're overeating, plus if we're drinking as well, calories are probably going to go up. If we are looking to get the most out of our training that week, if we have a game coming up, or if we're maybe even like trying to manage body composition, we're trying to maybe get a bit leaner, and the calories are blown up, then it's going to stunt their progress that week. So if we're overall calories are going up and we're not in that deficit, then we're probably going to maintain, or worst case scenario, we're going to actually gain a wee bit then. So it's going to take a wee bit longer to get to where you want to be. If you understand all those trade-offs and you understand performance is going to suffer, energy is going to suffer, recovery is going to suffer, and you're okay with that, then okay, go ahead with it then. But what can we do to minimize the damage? All right, so we can look at calorie banking. So if you know that there's an event coming up, can we pull the calories back a wee bit and the build up to it to give us a bit more room to play with then come the event day? All right. So say we take off 100 to 200 calories per day, that'll give you 500 to 1,000 calories to play with over the weekend then, say, for example. On the day itself, again, if it's not a game day or you don't have any training on, I like to keep the protein pretty high and try and hit the protein target as soon as possible, but keep the overall calories low. So I'll look at things like, maybe protein shakes in the morning, maybe like Greek yogurt, maybe another bit of protein, bit of berries. Again, keeping the calories relatively low, but getting the amount of protein up. Again, so that you have more calories to play with that day, all right, or whenever you go out or whatever it is. From a training standpoint, getting the sessions done in the lead up to that, so the quality of the sessions are still good, and you're not trying to get a massive session in when you're hungover the next day or you're still half cut. Yeah. And then the big thing afterwards, this is also, like, sometimes it seems so simple, but I don't know, it's often overlooked. Just getting back on track as soon as possible afterwards. All right. Rather than letting it like fester in you go out on the Saturday, you're down Sunday, you eat shade food, and then Monday energy shit, Tuesday energy shit, and then by the time Wednesday comes around, you still haven't done anything. Like, it's just getting back on track as soon as possible. Understanding the first few sessions back are probably going to be shit, but pick your poison. What is it to say? If you go out with you go out with the boys in the morning, you have to get up with the men in the morning. If you go out with the boys at night, you have to get up with the men in the morning. So yeah, just understand the trade-offs and have to suck it up sometimes. The other thing I would say is, like, what's the frequency of it? Are we doing it every week? If we're doing it every week, then it's probably going to be an issue. If it's on the odd occasion and it's a one-off, like, it's grand. Like, but the thing is, you can probably find an excuse or find an occasion every week if you wanted to, but it's about picking your battles. If you have a big one coming up, maybe the wee spontaneous ones that don't really need to happen, let's minimize them. All right. I think this was your one, mate. So question 12. So any tips on sleep? Been struggling sleeping recently and resulting in shocking recovery scores on the Whoop. All right. So with sleep, like, there's almost like a checklist here. There are coaches out there who'll like really specialize in sleep and they'll look into it in a whole lot more detail. But to be completely honest, that is a bit above my head. But in terms of looking at like structures, I literally stay in the green here. Whoop just came through. Stay in the green. Healthy sleep is key to green recovery. Plan your sleep to continue your streak. That's a saying. But in terms of the checklist, so regular bed and wake times, like, that's, you've probably heard it before. So do we have like a bedtime routine where we're getting to bed at the same time and waking up at the same time? Can we try and keep them as similar as possible? All right. In terms of caffeine, are we reducing caffeine in the lead up to it, or do we still having caffeine late into the evening? I used to do this when I was coaching in the gym and when I was even going out to training. Even up to a couple of years ago, I was still doing it. Probably since last year, I only changed it. Is not having caffeine, going out on the pitch in the evening. Like, we had a coffee at 5 o'clock in the evening and then went out to training and then wondering why I couldn't get to sleep when I got home. Hard for the first few sessions to change that, but once you get in the swing of it, you're grand. So having the caffeine cutoff time, usually about like 12 or 1 o'clock, works well for me. Probably 1, 2 at a push. Basically, caffeine has a half-life of around 7 hours, 5 to 7 hours, 5 to 8 hours. So basically, if you have a coffee at, say, 1 o'clock, 8 hours later, there's probably still half that caffeine in your system. All right. So you want to cut that off and not have it too close to bedtime. Screen time is a big one. Are you sitting scrolling on your phone, watching TV, on the laptop here, going late into the evening, getting the light in the system? Can we try and reduce light? Can we keep the screen time away? Can we maybe read a book? Can we switch off? Can we keep the light in the room nice and dim to actually get your body ready for going to sleep? So they're probably the main things. Having like a bedtime routine, having sort of habits that just sort of get you in the mindset of, right, I'm winding down here and getting ready for bed. So yeah, it's basically just a checklist. Like, if you're taking that on a consistent basis, you'll not go too far wrong, and you should find it a lot easier to get the sleep in. Another thing is, look at where you're spending. Like, do you spend a lot of time in your bed or in your room throughout the day? You want to keep the bedroom for a place that's associated with going to sleep. All right. If you're going in and laying there and watching TV or watching screens or like being on your phone just throughout the day, your body's going to start to recognize that pattern of it not being being a place where you go to sit on your phone rather than being a place you go to actually sleep. All right. Um, in terms of the numbers on the Whoop as well, then, so don't be getting too caught up in them. Like they're just numbers at the end of the day. Like if you wake up and you feel good, then great, happy days. But if you realize that your sleep has been shit and the numbers are backing up what you're feeling and what you're seeing, it's more about looking at like, right, what can we actually do and what steps can we put in place to improve them rather than getting caught up and stressed out about the numbers then. All right. But that's what you're doing with asking for the tips for sleep. So just about implementing now, mate. All right. Question number 13 then. So this is the last one that I have. So if there's any other questions that just have popping up here, feel free to fire them in the chat. Extra skills around training, so how to sort of fit them in. So for me, little and often is probably the big one. All right. So again, similar to what I was saying about the recovery stuff and the yoga and all that sort of crack, like little and often is going to be key. Being deliberate on what you're actually focusing on. So having a clear plan and structure, so the same way you would with your own training, whether it's gym, whether it's conditioning, whether it's speed work. And maybe looking to try and group that on your training days. So if you are getting into team training early, you are going to do a wee bit of speed work yourself, you're getting a good warm up in, and you have like 10, 15 minutes between getting your speed work done and before the team warm up starts. Can you have like a set focus of like, right, on this day, I'm going to do shooting on the move from this side, or if you're a free taker, this day I'm going to go and do frees, or if you're a defender, right, someone's coming down with me and I'm going to work on him taking me on and trying to solve a certain movement pattern or whatever it is. All right. Having that sort of plan, having that sort of structure. And if you are shooting as well, it's like, right, I'm going to shoot from 5 from here, 5 from here, 5 from here, 2 rounds or whatever. It's about quality over quantity. Like it's so easy to go down to the pitch and be there for 2 hours once every month, and you just kick and kick and kick, and then the quads and the legs and the hips are hanging off you the next day. If we're doing it on those days in between training or day after training, again, quality, but can we keep the intensity a bit light? So rather than going down and you're doing a bit of, say, shooting on the move or whatever, if you start going a full steam ahead and you're going 80, 90, 100%, and you're adding more change of directions, more accelerations, more decelerations, more speed, it's just going to add to the fatigue on a day after a team session where you've probably covered a good bit of ground and done a good bit of work. Adding the fatigue there, maybe the chance of picking up a niggle, or we go and train the next day then. There's more chance of a niggle popping up then. All right. So little and often, 15, 20 minutes sprinkled in here and there. Be deliberate with what you're focusing on, have a clear plan and clear structure in place. Maybe trying to group it on your training days as a wee bit of extra work, or if you're doing it on your days in between, or your rest days, or days in between training, keeping the intensity of it light but the quality of it good. All right. So yeah, hope that covers everything. Hopefully you enjoyed that. That is all the questions that we got. So lads, if you just have any questions that you just want to pop in the chat, any questions from the questions, far away.
There we go. Cheers for tuning in. Hopefully you enjoyed that. Hopefully you took plenty from it. If you did, please like, subscribe, and comment below if you have any questions. I'd be more than happy to give you feedback there, give you an answer there. But then also, if there's any ideas or things that you want me to cover, or if there's any questions that require a more in-depth video, then I can build out a whole video on that. So yeah, cheers again for tuning in. Glad you enjoyed it. Hopefully you enjoyed it, and see you in the next one.